Hey guys, how are you? Hope everyone is doing well. It is mid-July. Thank you for taking some time to join us on today's topic.
Yes, today we are going to be talking about planning a destination wedding and what your guests expect. You know, we talk so much about resorts and venues and all-inclusive and all the wedding planning details. Today we want to focus a little bit of light onto the guest side of things and what your guests are expecting when you're planning a destination wedding.
Yeah, one of the big things our couples want to know, not just their wedding day, but what can their guests expect? It's really important to them. Not only it's a big financial and time commitment, they want to know and want to make sure that their guests are having a great time. And so it's very important to them. So first things first is start with your wedding day vision. What does that look like as far as venue layout? Just how do you envision that day coming together? Is it a small, more intimate group, larger, grand, things like that? That will help us narrow down the venues for you and kind of get an idea of what your wedding count will be. And why is that important? Because logistically, the larger the group, it can be a little bit more difficult and you don't have as many options to you. Now, that doesn't mean it's not possible, but a lot of these wedding venues are catered to, 50, 100 people, give or take, for example. But if you want more than that, you definitely can do that. There are just so fewer options that allow for that. So something to keep in mind.
And keeping on that same note, if you envision having a separate venue for your ceremony, your cocktail hour, your reception, then that adds another layer of complication if you have a very large wedding group, because if a resort only has one venue that accommodates a large group, and now we're looking for a resort that has 2-3 venues that accommodate that large group, this is where planning in advance is going to be especially important with a large group. We always say plan 12 to 18 months in advance to get your preferred resorts and venues. That's going to be even more so the case if you have a very large wedding group and you want multiple venue options. So this is why a lot of couples too will decide to do a buyout in that scenario. If you have a very large wedding group and you might want to consider doing a resort buyout. There's a lot of boutique properties out there that maybe have 100 rooms and you can buy out the resort for your wedding weekend. So this is where that buyout comes into play. All right, next up we're going to talk about who should you invite. A lot of couples ask, what's customary and what's standard when you're planning a destination wedding? Who should I invite? So one of the things we do with our couples is once we've narrowed down the resort and venue options, I like to advise our couples to create what's called an ABC list. And this really breaks down your guest list into 3 categories. A is really going to be that immediate family, parents, siblings, grandparents, all of those people that you know are going to be there no matter what because they're your family. Close family. The B list is going to be more of like your ride and die friends, longtime friends, maybe people that you have very close, more maybe not a little bit more distant relatives, but not your immediate family. That's really going to be your B list. I like to kind of call those they're likely to come, but you're not certain they're going to come. Unlike your immediate family, which will be there. And then the C is going to be, more of those distant relatives, co-workers, maybe people you don't talk to or see as much. I like to call these like the coin flip people. There's a chance they might come, you're not surprised if they don't. So that's really how we like to break down that guest list. Overall, a good rule of thumb is 50 to 70% of the people that you invite will come to your destination wedding. That's just an average. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. But you can really get a solid gauge of that by breaking down who you want to invite into that ABC list, categorize those because it's going to help you see very clearly the amount of people will be there. Maybe you have a very large immediate family, and so that automatically is going to raise that count. And then all the way to those more distant relatives, co-workers that you're not so sure about.
Yep. And on the flip side of that, we get asked, who shouldn't you invite? Or do you feel like you're obligated to invite these people? Remember, you don't have to invite everyone you know, and that's okay, especially if you're going to have a smaller wedding group. A lot of people aren't going to make the cut, and that's okay. Some examples of that might be some acquaintances or distant relatives that you rarely speak to. Maybe you have some friends that are friends, but you just haven't touched base with them in years. That's okay if you don't invite them. Also, another section of people to consider is you have maybe a good friend that's coming, but just started dating someone, in the last couple of months. Don't feel bad if you say, hey, you're invited, but your plus one is not invited. That's okay too. Again, just if you're looking to keep it to a certain amount of people, not everyone's going to be able to go. So that's a big question that we get asked. Who should you not invite?
And remember, it's your day. Invite who you want to be there, and if you don't want somebody there, don't invite them.
The general rule is, would you want to share a drink with them, have a beer with them? If the answer is no, don't invite them.
So another question that we get asked pretty often is, I want to have an adults-only wedding, but I feel bad because I have maybe a brother or a sister and they have a little one, and I don't want them to not be able to bring their children along, or it makes it more complicated for them to have childcare. So just know that this is a very common question. If you want to have an adults-only wedding, there are so many ways that we can do that tactfully that will not hurt anyone's feelings. This can be as simple as on your invite saying, we love your little ones, but this celebration is going to be adults only because we want everybody to be able to fully relax and enjoy their trip. Now, on the flip side of that, there are a lot of resorts that offer exchange privileges, meaning there's adults-only areas and there's family-friendly areas. And so you could have your wedding at a resort like that allows you to stay in the adults-only area and allows your family to have the family-friendly side. And you can still make the wedding either with kids or without kids. You have the choice. And there's also resorts where you have an adults only next to a family friendly. So there are plenty of options out there, no matter how you envision this. But my point here is, don't feel bad if you want it to be an adults only celebration. That is very common. I know some couples also will say, we're only letting like the bridal party bring their kids, because maybe they're going to be the ring bearer, the flower girl, and they're going to be involved in the wedding. A lot of resorts too have childcare options, whether it's somebody who comes on site at the resort or works directly with the resort. So even if you want them to be able to bring their kids on the vacation, but you don't want the kids to be at the wedding, that's an option that we can arrange as well.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is just knowing that there are options out there that do have childcare in a pinch if you just have to have some kids there, but you don't want the children to be the focal point of your day or the resort or the vibe of resort you're looking for. Next question. Who pays for the flights? As I said earlier, it is a big financial and time commitment from your guests, but are we as a bridal couple supposed to pay for our guests' travel? And the short answer is no. This is your special day. They do not have to come. It's optional. We get that they're there for your wedding day, but this is also a vacation for them. So flights, accommodations, any travel costs for the destination, those costs do go to your guests. Now, that doesn't mean you can't help them out, maybe on the back end, hosting for example, a catamaran, if you wanted to foot that bill and just have everyone on the boat and have a great time, or maybe a send-off brunch on the last day that you host, and you could cover those costs. Or you could tell your guests, hey, you know what, we don't want any gifts, just you being there is really helping us have a great time. That way, it's just another financial cost that they don't have to worry about. So there are ways to work around that, but to answer the question, yeah, the travel costs are on your guests.
And, bypassing on the wedding gifts is probably the thing we see the most commonly, where people, just say, just you being there is enough. They might opt to do like a honeymoon registry for those people that really want to give them a gift, but a lot of couples do opt to bypass that. Now let's talk about bridal party expenses, because that's another question that we get a fair amount is, for my wedding party, they are going to cover their travel costs, like we said, with all guests, flights, and accommodations. But some other things that you could help cover if you want to would be the cost of hair and makeup, a welcome dinner, or a group outing like a catamaran, like Alden mentioned, their wedding day attire. Maybe you want to give them like a nice little personalized gift. Things like that are very common with destination weddings.
Yes. Just a few other tips regarding your guest list is save those send the dates early. We tell all our bridal couples you're trying to get that venue reserved a year out. Those save the dates should be out somewhere between 9 and 12 months in advance. This gives your guests time to budget, but also plan for their time off. A lot of places, not everyone, they have to put their PTO in a year in advance. Giving them more time helps them out, making sure that they can get the time off that they need. And then having a B list. Let's say you have some people that are on the fringe, you're not sure if you're gonna be inviting them or not. Us, as your travel advisor, your destination wedding planner, we're gonna be sending you regular updates on who's declined, who's coming, and then you may have some spaces that open up, and then you can send out some last minute invites to those people. Avoids any awkwardness, so have that B list ready, and then using your wedding website, have FAQ, travel costs, dress codes, whether any child policies that you have in there. Keep in mind, a lot of people, this might be their first trip to whatever destination you choose. If it's Mexico, Caribbean, it might be the first time that they've traveled in years. So they're gonna have a lot of questions, and it is our job to try to make that as clear and as seamless as possible.
And just to add a couple of things to what Alden mentioned, with the save the dates, the other benefit of sending those out early is it allows your guests plenty of time to be able to pay for their travel and accommodations. So if you send those save the dates out 9 to 12 months in advance, they can make their upfront deposit with us, which is typically very small, around $200, and then they have months to pay off the rest of that balance. So it gives them time to be able to, pay in increments if they want to. It's not like, oh, I got to pay, within the next month or 2 months or 3 months. They have plenty of time to plan that. As far as the B list goes, another thing with that, now the list we're going to be sending to you is an inventory report. So it is going to have a list of everyone who has booked the reservation. We always recommend comparing that side by side with your RSVPs, so that way you can see who has booked their room, who has not. It makes it easier for you to follow up with guests. We're also happy to assist following up with guests if you give us that list. So just some other ways that we can make that seamless and stress-free. And on the wedding website, this is completely customizable to your day. So we can include anything you want on here. We can include dress codes, weather, safety tips, childcare options, all those things that are gonna make your day personal and really tailor it to your vision. We can customize this page to have all of those items.
The more information you can give your guests, the easier and less complicated it's gonna be for them. They know what to expect, and it's just going to make it for a better experience.
And we always on our website too will have options, call us, email us if you have questions. We know if you're having 50, 100, 200 family members, you don't want to be dealing with all those calls. That's why you're hiring us. That's why we're here. We're going to take those calls for you. We're going to help take the time to walk your guests through on the phone. I can't even count how many times in a week I do this, where I talk to somebody and I walk them through step by step, push this, then go here, then this, and this is what this means. And I explain all those things to them. And that's really what you're looking for, is somebody to take all of that stress off your plate.
What to expect at the airport, transfers. What if I want to extend my stay and maybe travel elsewhere in the region? Is that something that you can help us with? All things we can assist with.
Yes. Now, no matter when you end up inviting on your final guest list, the more time you give people to plan, the better. So like we said, we always recommend starting this process 12 to 18 months in advance. Gives everybody plenty of time to plan accordingly, save up if they need to, and be able to make all of those arrangements.
Yes, at least a year out, save that date. If you have a special date in mind, there are so many bridal couples out there that they are planning a year, 2 years in advance. Sometimes they say, hey, I want that date. I know it falls on a Saturday, so I'm going to secure it as soon as I can. If you have some flexibility, that will help you, secure if there's a good venue that you really, really want, but you have some flexibility on the day of the week that you're going to have that ceremony. That will be really helpful. Otherwise, the farther ahead you can do it, the better.
Yeah, a lot of really popular venues fill up easily 12 to 15 months in advance, especially for weekend dates. So just keep that in mind when you are planning. If you are planning on a tighter timeline, you are going to need to be a little bit more flexible. And the larger the wedding group you have, you may have a little less options, especially if you're not planning far in advance.
One thing that couples also try to do is try to bump it next to a holiday, so that way their guests don't have to take as much time off. Maybe an extended weekend, something like that, helps them out.
Absolutely. Now, if you are planning your destination wedding, I know we gave you so much information to think about today, but we would love to set up a time, do a complimentary consultation with you, get to know you and your vision, so we can help make this process as seamless and stress-free as possible. We only work with a limited number of couples per year, because we want to be able to give a very high level of service, not just to you, but to your guests as well. So for that reason, we only take on about 9 couples a year. And So if you are looking to plan your destination wedding, reach out to us, schedule a complimentary consultation. We would love to get to know you better.
Talk soon.
Safe travels.